Hello everyone, my name is Kimberly Teo, and this is my culture presentation on the Japanese culture for CAPS 3200. Um, a little presentation content overview. I'm going to be giving you guys a short introduction on the Japanese culture, and then I'm going to talk about its location and background, their language, religion, clothing, different types of celebrations and festivals that they have, their different foods, music, sports, some of their arts, and historical and cultural sites, as well as a short conclusion of the whole presentation. So to begin, the Japanese culture is known for its unique balance between tradition and modern life. It has been greatly shaped by its heritage and it's deeply rooted in centuries of old traditions that have continued to influence their daily life despite it being modernized. The Japanese culture varies also across its regions. Each area has different unique traditions, dialects, festivals, and cuisines. So, the Japanese culture is deeply rooted in the geographical and historical context of Japan. An island nation in East Asia. It consists of four main islands. I'm sorry if I mispronounced them. The Honshu Island, the Hokkaido Island, the Kyushu Island, and the Shikoku Island, along with very a lot of numerous little islands in the Pacific Ocean near China and Korea. So, a little history overview on the Japanese culture. So, in ancient Japan, before Common Era, during the Jomon period, is where they had a lot of like their pottery and rudimentary tools. They also were in this era, I'd say, the Yayoi period. They introduced rice farming, and then they also when they start beginning the construction of burial mounds. Then it goes into the classic Japan, which is includes the Nara period and the Heian period, but I want to focus mostly on the Nara period because that's when they established the trend development of Buddhism and Shintoism, which we will get to later on in the presentation when we talk about the Japanese culture religion. And then we move to the feudal Japan era where I kind of want to focus on the Muromachi period where they begin to develop the tea ceremony art, the Noa theater, and ink painting. And then we move to the Meiji period, which is when it begins to kind of become more modernized. And it's when it starts to mix between their Japanese traditional uh, culture and westernized culture. And then we will move into the Showa period, which is basically like the reconstruction and their economical growth be post-war. And then we go to the Heian period, where it's when they begin to kind of incorporate more of the Japanese pop culture. And then we get to the Reiwa period, where it just basically is most in the period that we're in right now, which is continued modernization and influence between Japanese culture and different types of innovation and just different universal values. When we get to the language of the Japanese culture, the official language of the Japanese is Nihongo. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that wrong. It is the official language of Japan, and it's characterized by three writing systems, the kanji, the hiragana, and the katana, and they are used together in written communication. So here, the picture that you guys see on the presentation is a hiragana and the katana, and as you can tell, the hiragana is a little bit more detailed than the katakana. I did not find one of the kanji, but these different written languages it depends on how they're used. So their speech varies on their social context, but it emphasizes respect and hierarchy, and the language is mostly noticeable when they use honorifics. When we get to religion, the main tradition um, of the Japanese culture is Shinto and Buddhism, like mentioned earlier in the presentation. So Shinto emphasizes more on nature and spirits and different types of rituals and worshiping, while Buddhism focuses more on spiritual growth and the afterlife and meditation and different ancestor worship. Many of the Japanese culture and they practice both, but between a blend between tradition and everyday life. So they do practice, but it's mostly mainly practiced more during their um rituals for like New Year shrine visits or Obon festivals. And it's more like of an expression of tradition than everyday life. When we get to clothing, so their clothing includes the kimono, which is worn during ceremonies and festivals, and it is also their official, uh, iconic traditional garment, and it's often worn during, again, special occasions like weddings, tea ceremonies, and festivals. And then the modern adaptation is traditional attire. Again, they reserve it for formal events, and then they kind of use the Western style clothing dominant during their daily life. I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit of the men's traditional clothing. This is their kimono. Again, it goes back to history. There's been a little bit changes to it, but on the first image, we have one of their traditional dress shirts. But for most of it, they use the kimono. They sometimes also refer to it as a katana. And then I might have the katana wrong. I'm sorry. But um, they also, I'm sorry, it's not katana, it's yukata. That's what it is. I apologize. And then we have the women's traditional clothing, which also includes the kimono and and they tie it around the back with the big bow. In the first image, we have their traditional wedding ceremony kimono. And again, they have different colors that they use. It all depends on the festival and what they get. When we get to the celebrations, so they're most known for their festivals, which are known as Matsuri, and they're tied to different religion. And there's, well, not different religion, I'm sorry, but they're tied to their religion, and they're different types of seasons. They include different parades. They include parades, dances, and food stalls. Some examples of these main festivals are the Gion Matsuri, which takes place in Kyoto, and then the Nebuta Matsuri, which takes place in Aomori, and the Awa Adori in Tokushima. And again, these festivals kind of help strengthen their community bond and strengthen their community and cultural identity. When it comes to their traditional Japanese culture food. Um, the Japanese culture focuses on fresh and seasonal ingredients such as rice, fish, and vegetables. A lot of their popular dishes include sushi, ramen, tempura, and miso soup. Um, but then there's also a mix of fusion cuisine, which is just globalized fusion dishes that is a blend between tradition and Japanese food. And this is mostly a mix with international cultural practices. I'm sorry, excuse me. And some of these fusion cuisines include sushi rolls with non-traditional fillings like ramen with different Western toppings. And then they also have different dessert combinations with Japanese flavors and then Western techniques. Fun fact, actually, not so long ago, I had the opportunity to try a Mexican sushi, is what they called it. And again, it was a sushi roll with non-traditional filling. It included like cream cheese and chicken. And it was a different blend. As for their music, the Japanese culture, they have traditional Japanese music that is deeply rooted with their history, religion, and theater, and it features instruments like the koto. And the koto is a long stringed instrument, and that one is played by like plucking the strings. And then they have the shamisen, which is a three-stringed instrument, and this one is mostly used in storytelling and theater. And then they have the taiko drums, which are often used in ceremonies and festivals, as well as like some theatrical performances, such as the Noa and the Kabuk, which are classical performances with music and drama. They also use these instruments for religious ceremonies. When it comes to modern Japanese music, there's a blend between traditional music with contemporary genres like J-pop, rock, and electronic music, which kind of showcase the dynamic interplay between their traditional music and then the new modernized music. Um, J-pop is very popular worldwide, and it is very influenced by Western music. Um, it again basically kind of just reflects a mix between both tradition and modernization, and it connects both the past with modern um, entertainment. As for sports, the Japanese culture is they're known or they have a strong presence in martial arts. They have hosted the Summer Olympics in Tokyo in 1964 and 2020. And again, for their culture, sumo wrestling is considered the national sport. And then we have art. Um, for their art, their Japanese culture focuses on simplicity, balance, and attention to detail. So they have traditional art, which is origami, the art of holding paper, which symbolizes patience, creativity, and precision. Then they also have calligraphy, which is the artistic writing using brush and ink. And for them, it emphasizes beauty, flow, and expression. And then we have their traditional tea ceremonies. These are a formal ritual of preparing tea and serving tea, and they represent harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. They also had another type of art, which is, well, they have more, but I did not include images of this one. It's the Ikebana, which is a flower arrangements, which focus between their balance of nature and beauty. And they're very simple, their arrangements, but to them, they hold a lot of meaning. They also have different types of arts, a lot of more types of arts, but the origami, calligraphy, and tea ceremony were one of the main ones. But I also want to talk about the woodblock print, which is when they print images of landscapes, actors, or just like daily life into wood blocks. And then they also have traditional paintings, but again, those are mostly of nature, mountains, rivers, the changing of seasons. And they're basically, the paintings are more influenced from Zen Buddhism. And then they have modern art blends. And for these are kind of like these include like manga and comics and different types of animes, which are very globally influenced. For their cultural sites, they have different historical sites. Um, So there are a lot of temples and shrines and a couple castles, especially in the Kyoto and Nara section. And then Mount Fuji is a very sacred symbol. They also have cities like Tokyo and Osaka, which represent more modern culture. So for historical sites, they do have the Kyoto Kinkaku Ji Nara and the Nara-Tsudaiji Temple. And then they have the Himeji Castle, which these kind of show the rich history of Japan and their architectural heritage, as you can see here on the presentation images. And then they also have a lot of like shrines, like mentioned before, these are sacred sites, and not all of them are open to the public. There's only a couple. And these are deeply rooted in Shinto and Buddhist traditions. And then they have, of course, like mentioned, Tokyo and Osaka, which include like contemporary attractions like the Meiji Shrine that everyone can visit, the Edo Tokyo Museum, and the Dantori District, which blend tradition with modern changes. And then that's pretty much it on my Japanese culture presentation. The Japanese culture is a very harmonious blend of tradition and modernity, which kind of showcases their resilience and their ability to adapt, but still maintain their traditions. They preserve a lot of their traditional arts, cuisines, festivals, and different crafts, and family dynamics, as well as their religious practices and their gift giving customs, which they do give like little red folders of money, and then not folders, I'm sorry, envelopes of money. So just kind of in conclusion, Japan balances its heritage with contemporary innovations. And it's very influenced and continues to be influenced by the world. But they also influence the world with their food, their art, and their traditions. And they do it while preserving their heritage. And that's pretty much it for my presentation. These are some of the references that I used. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day.